episode 5 of the Amen Brother podcast. This is going to be a thing, man. Like, only 4 in. Yeah, welcome to episode 5. Happy Valentine's Day. Happy Pancake Day. Happy Chinese New Year. That happened as well.
Jeez. That did happen.
Happy Brexit. No, we don't talk about that.
No, we don't talk about that.
We did that one enough already. But yeah, we're glad to be back. And I'm glad to be back in the same studio as well. That's actually quite nice.
Also, just quickly, by the time this airs, you do realise all of those days you just said happy to are going to be totally irrelevant.
This is the thing, though. It's in between the 2 episodes, isn't it? So I thought, I'll just catch up. I don't know what else is happening. Easter won't
What's
be here
happening
too.
in a month?
Easter won't be.
Happy summer.
Happy picnics in the park with 3 friends at a 2 meter distance.
Happy apocalypse.
Yeah.
Happy, we've come back into the
happy 40 millionth vaccination. There you go. Hey.
The Tories will definitely tweet about
Go on,
that
NHS. You can do it.
Yeah,
Happy Boris's dead day.
Oh, we can only dream.
Right, he's going for the cancel straight away.
Sorry to our 2 Tory listeners on this podcast. We didn't mean it. But yeah, I feel like we'll just jump straight in and introduce our guests. It is, well, you've seen it from the title. You know who it is. It's Mr. Lawrence Halogenix.
Hello.
Hello.
Genix.
Genix. How we doing, man?
I'm good, man. Mate, you know what? Back in the day, my friends used to tease me and call me Hello Jenny. Oh, Jenny! That's Halogenix. Cool story. But yeah.
So what you're saying is don't say Halogenix on this podcast.
I have such a beef with my own name. It's a joke. Whenever anyone says it, I just go, oh God.
As in like just mispronunciations or just purposely taking the piss?
People mispronounce it. Don't ask me how they say it in Estonia because it's rude.
Have you ever had
Yeah, it's Halogenix.
You ever had Halogenix?
Yeah, Halogenix, Halotronics. First time I met Friction. This was back in the day. This was like 2009, and I was in Fabric, and I was like proper keen little bean. And I went up to him and I was like, I love your DJing and I love Shogun and I really want to be like, I really want to sign tunes to your label. And he's like, what's your name? I was like, Halogenix. And he was like, Halotronics. And I was like, damn it.
Yeah, we had that for a long time actually. We were always GLXY,
yeah.
Or just GLXY, which is also fine, I don't mind. They're kind of getting it in the right ballpark, but
What's the reason behind GLXY?
This is actually a really stupid story, but I think every name's stupid. The origin story is always stupid, but basically me and Tom were at uni and we just started making tunes. And we were like, we need to think of a good name, like people are going to remember us by. Because at the time, we had solo artist names. Tom was called just Alston. This is his last name. I was called Middleman because I was the middleman between the crowd and the vibes. That's why it was Middleman. So Alston and Middleman weren't going to run. Basically, Alston and Middleman weren't going to run. Yeah, I know, it was awful. And then we were like, yeah, cool, we'll come up with a name. And then literally I had a dream about our name being Galaxy, but then it was just like normal spelling of like, like the chocolate bar or the Ford people carry or whatever.
That's funny that you'd associate Galaxy with a chocolate bar rather than the Galaxy.
Yeah, well, this is the thing.
Showing your age.
Galaxy, like the chocolate bar.
Yeah, no, but like legitimately, like it's the first association is a chocolate bar, the second is a Samsung phone, and the third is the Ford people carrier. People don't think about space. It's mad. It's mad.
What are you talking about?
No, you don't.
So you're telling me that your name is based on a chocolate bar?
Basically, yes.
rather than the Galaxy.
Basically, our tunes are smooth and silky like Galaxy chocolate bars.
There's a communal Galaxy universal sigh going on right now. There's people listening to this like,
But then
we're not sponsored by Cadbury.
We're not. But yeah, the stylized bit was basically like, at the time, I think it was like 2013. It was
Were you trying to fit in like an upside down V?
So we like trap was really big then, and all the artists were like with the V's as A's, and we were like, should we do it as a piss take? Not thinking ahead to be like, if this sticks, this is our actual name, but it stuck, and then we were like, you know what?
It's a good name.
We're here now. So it's like, I feel like, like when Skrillex first came up with his name, everyone would be like, I'm not saying we're Skrillex, by the way, just caveat that.
Funny that.
Everyone would have been like, it's a stupid name, but then as soon as your tunes blow, Skrillex, yeah.
I have this is the kind of going back to why we started talking about this. I think when I first started Halogenix, it was because I used to draw graffiti and my tag was halogen. And then it was like, when I started making tunes, it was like, what are you going to call yourself? And I was like, just halogen. I just put an IX on the end because it looked cool. And then I was like 15 then. Yeah. And then as I got older, I started to realize it was really stupid. Yeah. But by the time I realized it was too stupid, I'd already had music out, and then it was just too late. And I was like, well, fuck it.
The rebrand things, it's not it really, is it?
So. If I reckon if there's gonna be a big change in, if there's gonna be a big shift in like sound, or you're at an early stage in your career, then cool. But at the end of the day, you become synonymous with your name, innit?
Yeah, and once like the Instagram's locked in, all the Google searches are locked in, Spotify, all that stuff.
That's another thing. Halogenix. You Google Halogenix. When I first started Halogenix, if you Googled Halogenix, the only thing else that came up was a Christian rock band.
You know what? I've seen that.
They were terrible.
I've seen that before.
They were terrible. And now there's like a natural beauty company called Halogenix.
Nice.
Yeah.
I actually really like your name.
They keep on
I like
tagging
your
me
name
and
as
stuff.
well, actually, to be fair.
It's because you like the music though, right?
That's the thing, right?
Yeah.
I think Galaxy, like, just quickly, I was
I'm sat here, bruv.
Who are you?
Yeah,
I thought you were just the engineer.
He's a guy that
I'm
does the
literally
volume.
just here to sort John's headphone levels. That's it.
hold on. I actually do like Pola. It's
Thank
just the fact
you.
that you're a double barrel name makes it not as relevant in this scenario.
All
that I'm
right, I
talking
see how
about.
it is. Yeah, that's cool.
But in saying about John's, I was one of the Galaxy fans that did a communal sigh about 5 minutes ago. He said it's a chocolate bar, not space. 'Cause
I mean, that's not what, by the way, that's not what I said. That's actually not what I said. That's what you guys said. We didn't actually name ourselves after a chocolate, but just to clarify that.
You heard it here first. That's what it means. It's a chocolate bar.
Hey, member of a podcast exclusive.
Yeah, where's the horn
Get
at?
the klaxon going. Plenty of them. But yeah, sorry, Rich, I interrupted you. I was drinking
Mate, I was done.
By the way, he's drinking his red wine. We're going to start doing a weekly Rich's red wine review every
Oh,
podcast.
that's a nice segment.
So what
Full-bodied, red.
What are we drinking this time, Rich?
It's a Trevento, which is a Argentinian Malbec Mendoza region.
Did you just read that
2019.
off the label?
He read that for later.
To be fair, I actually do know this one because I drink it all the time, and my old man is a wine buyer, so I should know a fair amount. So if we did do this segment, I'd get called out a lot because getting shit wrong and be like, "You should know about wine." But I am enjoying my chalice this time around, and it was, to be honest, it's kind of inspired by the Deggs episode where I watched him drink his red wine, and he was speaking so eloquently, and then I kind of had remembered that. Sometimes when I drink wine, I feel like I speak eloquently. So
Emphasis on the feels like. Yeah.
definitely it feels like. But I'm going to trick myself into thinking this is now my performance-enhancing drug. And
For anybody
here we are.
confused at what they're hearing right now, it is in fact Rich trying to speak.
Yeah, it's not how you actually are, it's how you appear to yourself, innit? So if the red wine makes you feel classy and smart, then fuck it, we'll just go with that, man.
I wouldn't say classy and smart. I was only taking the piss, but like I do love a red wine, as you are.
You
John.
do love a red wine. I feel like I'm gonna ask this question to everyone because it's so relevant right now, man. How you know it's coming already as well.
The sigh.
The sigh. Lockdown. Creativity, music. I mean, to be honest, your output's been excellent. But how have you found it personally?
My output now is stuff that I made kind of at the start of lockdown, I guess. The remixes. I mean, the EP I wrote before lockdown, the one that came out last year, and then all the remixes I put out were at the very start of lockdown. So I was still like gassed, you know, still like hyped and inspired. Now, I have been writing, and I've got a load of stuff on my computer that at some point I do want to try and do something with, but I listen to it now and I'm like, what's the point in any of this? Like, I'll listen to it and go, yeah, cool, like it, sounds like me. But then, you know, trying to visualize how it's going to come out and how to package it, how to market it, what people are going to think about it, you know. I'm just like, I'm not there at the moment. I'm not in that headspace where I can really start to think of that stuff. And it doesn't excite me to be putting out music at the moment. So I'm just enjoying the time off, man. I'm still writing, but I'm enjoying the kind of, I put so much work in last year and the year before that to get to where I was. It's kind of almost a silver lining that I've been able to just kind of relax. And I'm blessed. Like, I've got, you know, stuff. I'm doing stuff to kind of make sure that I'm comfortable and I can pay my bills and stuff, you know. But so I don't have to kind of panic in that sense. But I'm kind of enjoying it in a way. I'm hanging out with my wife and we're just at home watching TV, and I'll get in the studio and write some weird stuff and not feel any pressure to write a banger or to like write the next big tune, because I put a lot of pressure on myself to do that. And yeah, there's been none of that. I can feel it creeping in now that all this vaccine stuff is starting to go kind of
The clock's ticking now.
Yeah, and people are
Yeah,
starting
yeah.
to talk about, we're going to start booking festivals. We're going to start booking club shows for like the end of the year. And I'm like, damn.
I was actually really enjoying this.
I'm doing a show with like a Zoom rave.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so like next month. So with Kaz,
Is that one of those virtual like?
I'm not sure how it's actually going to be presented. All I know is that me, Kaz, and Particle are turning up to a studio and being filmed in some kind of live, in like a in some kind of DJ setup, and it's being broadcast on Zoom. But to get into it, you kind of, I mean, I'm just chatting shit at the moment because I don't really know. But there's like, it's not like as simple as you just click on a link and you get into the Zoom thing. There's like some kind of theater and kind of entertainment factor to it, which I don't really understand. But the reason I'm talking about this is because I'm thinking about what I'm going to play, and honestly, I'd probably just load up my set from like last year.
Yeah.
Like no new tunes, maybe a couple of new things, but just I'm kind of in stasis, and I'm kind of all right with that, really.
Have you done many live streams and stuff over this period?
No, none.
So that's wicked.
Yeah, I did 2 like in quotation marks lockdown shows.
Yeah.
Like I did one in Manchester for Rich, which was cool. It was weird because I drove there. It took me 4 hours to get there, and then I drove there with my wife, and she wasn't allowed on the stage with me. She was just like by herself, kind of to the side, and everyone was in like a little kind of taped out box, and 6 people per table, and you couldn't like shout. And like to go to the bar, you had to raise your hand, and they would come and escort you to the bar. It was weird.
Yeah.
And the music wasn't very loud. And I was just playing like soulful stuff, and nobody gave a shit.
They want the horns, man. It's Manchester.
And then this kid came on after me. I can't remember his name, but this kid came on after me and started with like some real Larry stuff. And it was just like, they just went mental. And I was like, oh, for fuck's sake. And then I just drove home, and I was like, God damn it. And then I did one in Bristol, which was actually really cool. I think it was a 1985 thing. I think it was, yeah. And that was really cool. It was like a vibe. Everyone was sat down. It was a bit sketchy, I'm not going to lie. I did those 2, and I was happy to do them. But, other things like that, I wasn't really interested in doing. I didn't feel that I would be providing anything that wasn't being provided by other people. In terms of live streaming, I had toyed with the idea of doing like an AV set. And I set up this really cool rig in my living room where I got my sound panels, like my acoustic panels, and I set them up in this kind of way, and I have a projector, and I worked out how to do projection mapping.
Sick.
And I made some visuals, and I kind of came up with this whole concept, and my wife does like production design stuff, so she helped me with that, and it kind of looked really sick. And then I kind of got like half the way into actually developing it, and then I just thought, I can't be fucked. And I just gave up on it, and I played PlayStation and watched Netflix for the rest of the month, and I haven't revisited it since. And I'm kind of happy I did that, because as much as it would have been fun and interesting for me to do, I don't think it would have been to the standard that I would have been proud of to like put my name to it. I held myself to a very high standard, and I don't think it would have passed my test to be something that was worthwhile doing. It was a fun experiment, and it was in lockdown 1, and it was like I was just locked in my house, so it's like it was cool to kind of spend some time doing. But I'm glad I didn't do it.
Something that you can revisit at any time as well.
I've always been really interested in the whole AV side, but it kind of presents a unique problem in drum and bass, because it's such a an energetic music, and coming up with visuals that suit it, I find has always been interesting to watch other people and how they do it. Now with the production, the kind of visual production stuff you have at festivals and clubs, like lights and LED screens and stuff like that, you could do some really wild stuff. But I think there's some, like when I was a lot younger, when I first started writing drum and bass, I had this idea of making very techno inspired drum and bass that had very kind of bespoke and visuals that really married up with the music. It was very kind of black and white and techno, just flashes and abstract kind of, you know, things like that. And then I think, yeah, it was just kind of, it turned into one of those things that was a cool idea, but I never really developed it beyond that.
Seeing you mentioned techno, have you seen the stuff that like Defected do from like a visual perspective? Because their stuff's really cool, actually.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of at like a next level.
Yeah.
You know, and I would be very interested in at some point if I got to a stage where, you know, in stage of my career where we were talking about production budgets and like stage design budgets and stuff like that, then I would like be a kid in a fucking sweet shop.
Sick.
I would just be like, this is amazing. I'd bring in some really cool people and we'd come up with something really, really cool.
Would you be shredding electric guitar on stage alongside visuals as well?
Yes.
Excellent.
With a see-through DJ box.
That is basically what I had in mind. You read my mind there. Excellent.
No, I mean, this is another thing. It's like, and this has been something that I've considered for a long time, is that as a drum and bass producer and DJ whose musicality comes through by sitting in front of a computer, and I have a couple of synths with keyboards, and I do have musical knowledge, but there would be a level of doing something for the sake of doing it rather than it being like a very cool addition to a live show. And I know that we've maybe jumped a few, this kind of a bit of a segue or like quite a jump, but what I'm talking about is like live shows that are live just for the sake of being live. I don't really find that interesting.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing other than like pressing play on a sequencer and playing along to something that you've pre-programmed? Like, if you're adding like risk into your live show, then I find that interesting. If you're adding like visual manipulation into a live show, I find that interesting. If you're a musical person and that translates into your music and you're playing that live on stage, then I find that interesting. But if you're just like standing on the stage with, you know, Ableton and pressing play and playing a riff that you've already programmed, like I'm like personally, that doesn't really excite me. So I'm not the kind of person that would like strive to be that guy.
I've always said this, man. I've felt the same way about live, not all live electronic music, but a lot, and not just drum and bass. It spans to a few other genres. It's that lack of improvisation, I think.
But I think that's what makes it so cool in its musical form.
Yeah.
It's very programmed and it's very like, people obviously go real deep into the technical production stuff of it, and that's what makes it cool. But that doesn't particularly translate into live.
Well, this is it, yeah. With a good band, it's nice that they can throw in variations that you haven't heard on the recorded version because, you know, they're playing instruments, they're using their fingers, they can do whatever they want.
Yeah.
You're way more restricted with sequences and programming to do that, which is why
nobody wants to hear a 15-minute extended version of a 3-minute drum and bass tune.
It's true.
It's like, oh God, fucking please stop it.
It was interesting you were touching on you have like a musical background. I did want to ask you about that because obviously I think the last time I spoke to you was at Alex's leaving day. And I found out that your dad was involved with Star Wars.
He was.
The Star Wars original score, right?
Yeah.
So I worked with John Williams, which blew my mind at the time. I had a few beers and I was just like, that is mental.
That's blowing my mind right now. That's crazy.
That is crazy though, isn't it? Yeah, it's crazy.
So my dad was in the London Symphony Orchestra and he played the French horn. And it was in the 70s. So he was in the LSO at the time when John Williams used them for Raiders of the Lost Ark, Star Wars, a bunch of different stuff. He played in some musical stuff on like Shaftesbury Avenue, like Les Miserables and all that kind of stuff. Which is actually really funny because my wife performed in Les Mis when she was a very, very young girl. And we worked out that there was a crossover by about a year when my wife would have been on the stage and my dad was in the pit.
That's nuts.
What?
That is nuts.
But yeah, so my old man played French horn, LSO, and he was involved in the Star Wars theme.
So sick.
He played it, yeah.
That's crazy.
Did that kind of give you your musical start then, yeah? Having such a talented dad.
Like he was so heavily involved in music. It was just, that was his career.
Yeah.
And so just growing up around that I just wanted to be like him, you know. I just looked up to him. Like every person does their father, I guess, at some point in their life. And when I was about, God, what was it? Must have been about 8 or 9 or 10, and he would play in the Barbican. He had like a residency. He played the LSO, or he was part of another orchestra. He was part of a bunch of different orchestras. He was part of one that played in the Barbican. I think it was LSO, and I used to go with him to his rehearsals. And I don't know if you've ever been to an orchestral rehearsal before, but
Never. I can't say I have.
They are very, very cool. Well, I found them cool when I was 8. And the Barbican is just like an amazing space anyway. And so I would just be up in the stands, I'd just be up in the auditorium whilst there was an orchestra rehearsing for the show. And I would just have the whole place to myself. And it was just like magical.
Yeah.
And I would wander around. Everybody knew who I was. So I'd be able to kind of, get to places that other people wouldn't be able to get to. And everybody loved me. And it was all really fun. And so that really inspired me to be involved in music. And I played the cello when I was a kid. I played the piano, but I hated it. Like I remember I played the cello since I was 7 and I got to grade 5, I think, before I put it down. I walked my first day of secondary school. I walked in with a cello on my back and got teased and didn't pick up again. And I remember people saying to me at the time, you're going to tell this story in years to come and it's going to be like, you're going to regret it. Not like don't do it, you're going to regret it. But like I'd heard people say things similar, and I was like, oh, fuck that, cello's for like wimps. Well, I want to play the guitar,
Yeah.
And I never picked it up again. But I did pick up the guitar and I formed a band with a friend of mine and we were really, really bad. And, around the same times, I was, my older brother was getting into electronic music and drum and bass and techno and stuff like that. And he had a CD. It was called Pure Drum and Bass and it was mixed by Groove Rider. And the first tune was Bacteria, Ed Russian Optical.
Sick.
And I remember I nicked it from him and I would just play it on repeat. And I was obsessed. And that was when I was about 10. And I had that CD in my collection for about 2 years. And I just played the first 4 tracks because I was just like, that's all I needed. And then I bought another CD a few years later that was like a No U-Turn mix CD mixed by Mampy Swift. And it had like people like, like old Conflict tunes and like KT tunes and like Kraken tunes and Skynet tunes. And I was just like, this is fucking wild, man. This is so cool. And I was obsessed with it. And then I bought a laptop when I was like 15 and it had GarageBand on it and I tried making drum and bass. And again, it was really bad. But I didn't know what I was doing. That's kind of, that's the story of my intro to music via my dad.
Yeah. I mean, starting at 15, that's pretty early, I think.
That's very early.
Yeah, I didn't really get going until I was like 19 or 20, I want to say. Like, that was like the making the bad music phase.
Yeah.
Like, I probably got to the okay phase about a year ago. So it's like, yeah. That was like, the bad phase was like late for me. So 15, that's an early start.
I mean, I wasn't very, I had to say this without sounding like I'm cussing myself. Like, I wasn't very intuitive or curious as a kind of teenager. And so I started listening, like I said, I had that CD for like 2 years and I just listened to the first 4 tracks. It never occurred to me that there was like a whole world of this stuff out there. And I could go and like discover all of this cool stuff. And the same was with production as well. I got a laptop, it had GarageBand on it and I used all the samples that were on it. Is this my chicken nuggets? Oh, he's arrived. Right,
the
pause,
nuggets
pause.
are here.
Let's
We'll
pause
pause
it. Yeah, it never occurred to me that there was a whole world of music out there that I could explore, and the same happened with producing. It never occurred to me that there might be like a resource online that would cater for everything that I needed to know. And so I spent probably the first 2 years of my production life just not knowing anything. And a friend of mine gave me a copy of Reason which I installed on
Oi,
my
oi.
computer, and it was cracked, so it had no presets, nothing like that. And I'd open it, and it would just be a blank rack. And I'd right click, and I'd add like a synth or whatever. And for ages, I was like, this is crazy. Everybody makes music just using one instrument. That's mental. And I'd program like a little bass line, or whatever, and then I wouldn't know what to do. And then I remember right clicking, and it was like a mixer. And it took me ages to discover that there was a thing called a mixer that you could combine different signals. And so I started early, but that it was snail's pace for a long time until I eventually went to college. There was like a course near where I lived that was kind of partially funded by the local council. It's called Islington Music Workshop, and it was amazing. And it taught you how to use Logic, it taught you like music theory, not music theory, like production theory, like what a compressor does, like how equalizers work, like kind of sound theory basically, and then production classes. And it kind of picked up from there, and I'm still learning,
So you basically went from 0 to 100 real quick. Yeah. That's mad, actually. I feel like it's quite, like a lot of producers say they went to you did a course, didn't you, Jack? As well?
I did, yeah.
And you did one as well, right?
I did.
I'm the only person that didn't,
Did you do SAE?
No, I did. I went to Solent Uni and did a 3-year degree and produced an album and no longer produce music. I actually got a 2-1. But yeah, I did it with basically Gera got me a 2-1. Shouts Harry, Gera guest.
Gera.
Yeah, smashed it.
Jokes. Yeah, so it's funny we say about the discovery of the music thing as well. I guess back then, like, even early 2000s, mid 2000s.
When I first started.
When you were like talking about the fact that you've played the first 4 tunes off that CD, but didn't discover more drum and bass after that. It's funny because I guess now it's so easy to do that, isn't it? Like in comparison, like if you've got Spotify, just type in drum and bass, whatever, and you're there.
Yeah, you're there.
Yeah.
And also you've just got like infinite resources online to give you a really good start. You were talking earlier about EQ50 when we were just yamming our food. I did a masterclass production thing with one of their mentees yesterday, and I think her name's Spectral, and she's like 23 from Bristol or something like that. And she's been making tunes for like a year or something, and they sound like super legit.
Sick.
And like, I'm like, damn, like I didn't know any of this stuff when I first started producing. And so I think people nowadays, they have like, there's so much stuff out there to give them a good start, and it's really cool. So yeah, I guess.
Do you also though, like, because when I was listening to you talk about your journey, I actually really enjoyed the kind of organic nature of just you like being thrown into the deep end, and you just like, relentlessly. I imagine you there, like relentlessly, like trying to figure it out for yourself, And I think there's a lot to be said for that, because I don't know, you producers will have a, more of an opinion on this, and way more valid one, I would imagine. But being able to kind of do that yourself, as opposed to looking at how someone else does something and then making your own interpretation of it, or manipulating certain things the way that someone else taught you to, and maybe giving your own little twist. Sometimes
there's a value in not knowing what you're doing.
Yeah.
Because you end up discovering things for yourself.
Yes.
Rather than, oh, this is how you make a bass line in Serum, and then it just sounds like the same.
Yeah.
And for years it was like that. For years I never really looked, when my productions became a bit more kind of palatable and made more sense, I would never look to drum and bass for inspiration about how to write drum and bass.
Yeah.
It was always outside, because I for some reason it never occurred to me that there was this whole massive world of it. I knew that I liked it, but it just, for some reason I was just like, well, there's the only thing that exists in drum and bass is those 4 tunes.
It's just these 4, nothing else. But the thing is that I think that, again, and there's something it's been a recurring theme on this podcast, but like that drawing outside influence is one of the key things in defining your style, though, isn't it? Because if everyone just listens to the same tune and makes tunes that sound like that one tune, there's no variations.
Burial, it was Burial for me.
Yeah, I was going to ask, what were the things?
As soon as I discovered Burial, it was like my beats went from trying to sound actually, no, a lot of my like early drum and bass was very, very jump up inspired, because it was around the time when I was making it. Sorry, I've got fucking gas in my throat.
It's the Nuggets, bro.
Mackie D's repeating.
The Nuggets coming back with a vengeance.
When I first started making drum and bass, I was like 15, 16. That's when I first started raving. And it was like Players and all that kind of stuff. And so I was listening to that as well. And so that kind of crept in. And then as soon as Burial happened, it was like the snares got really muddy and the kick drums became real soft. And there was a lot of Foley and there was a lot of like spooky pitch down vocals and kind of weird.
It's all about
pads.
the texture, innit?
Yeah, man.
It's just texture.
And I was obsessed with it. And it was like trying to create that sound, but do it in a more energetic way. And like Breakage, for me, that was like, he was my idol. I looked at Breakage and I was just like, you're doing what I have in my head. You know, what I have in my head is exactly how he ended up doing it. Like when he was doing the DSB stuff, like Clarendon and like his bass bin LP, he's got this tune with SP and it's called Shadow, and it's like basically like a kind of recreation of an old Dom and Roland tune, and it's just my favorite tune in the world. And so that was huge. Burial was huge for me when I was starting out.
I feel like there's got to be some sort of R&B influence in there.
Oh yeah,
well, right?
Mate, Amory.
Yeah, there we go.
Amory. Do you know what? I used to have this thing, and my wife teases me for it still. When I had an iPod, and I'd kind of routinely go and refresh, like clear out my iPod and like put new music on it. And the one thing that never left was Amory.
One thing as well, the tune. Yeah.
Not only because I was crushing on her hard, but she was sick. Like her beats were ridiculous. Like I can't remember who produced her beats, but they were really clean. They were really kind of jazzy and kind of soulful.
A live band feel as well as some of them.
Yeah, and her voice is incredible. And so I was always trying to like make that kind of sound. I was trying to capture that vibe. And I guess so. Yeah, R&B was a big one. Probably the next one would be garage.
Sick. Because
that was like my first. That was before drum and bass. I grew up in Stokey, and my best friend who lived 3 doors down from me since I was like 4 years old. His older brother was a garage DJ, and I bought my 1210s off him when I was like 16, and they used to belong to Sparks from Kind Sparks. Who I think's dead now, really sad. I think I discovered that recently. He's passed away. But and I bought his decks off him for like 300 quid, and he lent me a bunch of his old records. And much like the story about how I was producing, I didn't know what I was doing about DJing, and I just used to play 2 records at the same time and just have one Q1 somewhere that I thought was like legit, and then just cut real quick. And I was like, yeah, sick, I'm a DJ. And I remember tunes like God, this course is gonna escape my mind now. Real old classic garage stuff. And it was those kind of that trio, real early drum and bass, jump up stuff, Burial. I've got 4, I guess. Jump Up, Burial, R&B, and garage.
Sick.
And that's kind of fused, I guess, into what I'm doing now. And it's kind of come full circle, really, because, I guess people know me as a producer that writes liquid for the most part. There's obviously a couple of more kind of clubby tunes in there. But for the most part, I guess people would refer to me as a liquid producer. But I'm trying to take it in a kind of more garagey kind of direction at the moment.
It's funny that actually, like with the whole classification thing, because I've always counted you and maybe like a handful of others, maybe like Alex, maybe Jack Workforce, as that kind of, you can't really pin them to a style. You very much will got your own sound, but like you can kind of just as easily write a real soulful bit as just a pure galley like club thing. Like, and that for me is just like an extension of just your, like you said, the influences and the thing that you do. So yeah, it's interesting when you say that you think people class you as a liquid producer.
But it's like, I find myself whenever I write something that ends up being received well, my instinct is to always go the complete opposite direction. And I think that might be a not a mistake, but like from a kind of, if I had a manager, they'd be like, just make more of that.
Yeah.
When I wrote Bledge, they would have been like, just write more tunes like that.
Yeah.
And when
you could have got
came out, they
there
would
was
have been
some
like,
legs
just
in that
make
syrup
more
patch.
like that.
For
You know?
sure.
And as soon as Bledge came out and it became a thing, the last thing I wanted to do was write a club tune. I just wanted to write soulful stuff.
Yeah.
And then Independent came out and I just wrote a whole batch of club tunes.
Nice.
You know? Yeah.
I feel like that mentality that you just described, though, in my very unprofessional opinion, to me would signify what separates a good producer from a great producer. Because it's like, you're not, you know, anyone can smash out. What's the key you always talk about?
F.
Oh, F. Yeah. The F one note rollers. Come on.
Do you know what I mean? Like, you know, let's bring Independent into the fold here. Like, what subgenre are we categorizing that as?
You can't. That's the thing.
Do you know what? For me, that's a garage tune.
Yeah. And do you know, maybe that's why it's like one of my favorite tunes fucking ever, because I love garage. And what you just explained, honestly, like, hats off to you, because that is exactly how it comes across. You know, you're from following your journey very closely. Like, it's so varied, and you know, isn't that what music is about? It's experimental, maybe, and maybe that's like an influence from your, you know, all the way back to listening to your old man and stuff, and that orchestral influence. But like, it's just sort of trying things, you know, and like we said about the production side of things as well, like, you know, learning off your own back, like trying things that, you know, aren't the fucking norm, which is what it's supposed to be about, right?
I saw something on Twitter yesterday, and it was I can't remember what it was. It was some American rap guys, and they were saying about how they never know it's a banger until it's out. You know, and like when I was writing Bledge, I didn't know it was going to do what it did. You know, I had no idea. There was nothing really that I had to reference that tune off of in terms of when I was making it. I was just messing around on Serum, and I've just happened to luck across those particular combination of settings that it made that sound. And I was like, right, that's pretty cool. And put a really like simple beat under it. And then that was the tune, you know? I wasn't like, I'm going to write a tune that's going to destroy dance floors. And then the same with Independent. I found the sample that ended up being the main part of that song. And I was like, oh, this is cool. And I made the beat and I added some other stuff to it. And I was like, this is a cool tune. You know, it sounds legit. It sounds like something I'd want to put my name to. And then it came out and people kind of were like, how? How have you made this? And I was like, I just did. Do you know what I mean? Like, I never set out to do that. And I don't think anyone ever does. I think people might kid themselves in saying to you, yeah, I set out to write bangers. And obviously there's like a formula for a banger, right?
Yeah.
But like a tune that actually transcends you know, the status of being like a good dance floor tune to a literal banger, where people draw for it no matter who you are. You've got Andy C, you got like whoever playing it, people outside the genre. Like, I don't think those things are ever intentional.
They can't be, really, can they? Because that whole formulaic aspect of it means that it's only going to be relevant for that trend. As soon as the trend passes on,
also,
it's kind of
I think those things are given their status. Like, you have no control over that. I don't specify what makes a good tune.
Yeah.
I don't say, oh, here's a new EP. By the way, track B, that's a banger.
This one,
you know what I mean?
this one is a banger.
It gets made on the dance floor, people's reactions, like, you know, how much people want to post about it. And I think the main component in those tunes being that way is that they're different.
Yeah.
They don't fit a mold. When I remember the first time you heard what's that Benny Hill tune?
Low Blow.
No,
Or Fanta Black.
Fanta Black.
Yeah.
I remember being like, what the?
Yeah. It's spooky, isn't it? And it's just like,
that was me with Low Blow. Like, I remember hearing that tune and being like, holy hell, this is just unlike anything else.
Yeah. Or like Veteran by Boo. I remember first hearing that and I didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
I was like, this is crazy. And I played with him and he played it and I was like, bro, what's this tune? He's like, oh, it's me. And I was like, what? This is insane.
Yeah.
And I mean, I guess those are, I don't know. Yeah. Those moments are made by other people. I just happen to be attached to that tune because I made it.
Yeah.
But like, and this is the interesting thing because then people start looking at me like, oh, he writes bangers. And then I think that's what makes me, that almost scares me, you know?
Yeah.
Is that I then have that responsibility to live up to that. And, you know, my psychology would probably dictate that I would run a mile from that responsibility because I'd just be like, I don't want the pressure. I don't want people to look at me and then I'm going to try it again and people are going to go, he's a one-hit wonder. He tried it again, he flopped it.
Yeah,
Thing is though, mate, like, I mean, that remix, that Sheller remix, it is definitely not a one-hit wonder thing. It's really not. Like, that tune absolutely slaps.
But thank you. But I don't think that has any longevity. I think, it's a cool tune and people like it. Obviously, it's Sheller. It was a big tune when it came out. Chimpo is obviously a G. Shout out Kings of the Rollers. But I don't know. Maybe this is just my take on it. Maybe I'm trying to prove my own point, I guess. Like, if you're saying it's a big tune, then cool. Then great.
Yeah.
You know, I'm always trying to like diminish my own achievements.
Of course,
I think, by saying like, you know, whatever, it's just a tune.
But then it's that thing with like, the reason you do that, I think a lot of artists do that, is because then it doesn't build that expectation in your own head that like, oh yeah, this is the best tune I've ever written.
But also,
Now,
I think it's
the next
sometimes genuinely, like, genuine humility as well.
I think it's a
mix of the two.
Defense
I
mechanism
find.
and it's humility, I think, because like similar to like whenever we've written a tune that's done well, and actually weirdly our most successful tunes I actually hate. I actually genuinely do hate them.
Same.
Yeah, there you go. he's on one of them. But like, it's that you're on one of them.
That's probably why I hate
He's
it.
actually on one of them. But like, it's that thing of like, you always know you can do better. And I think the moment you start thinking this is the best show I'm going to write ever, then it's kind of like, there's no point. You must
I've tried. I've tried rewriting Bledge. And Dragon Force was just the same patch in Serum, just kind of messed around with.
It's resampled a few times,
yeah. The same with the Kings of the Rollers remix. It's all from that same patch that I made for Bledge. And so there's obviously, like, if you kind of deconstruct that, you can kind of maybe understand that I have that concept in my head that I was onto something good, so let me try and kind of use that. There's also a thing where it's like, you know, I own that sound. You know, that sound is mine, so I have license to reuse it if I want to.
Yeah.
But there's definitely an element to where I'm trying to recreate that moment. And when did Bledge come out? 2017? 4 years ago. Like, I just that wasn't in my mind. I didn't want to do that.
So, out of interest, seeing we're talking about not following any sort of particular rule book. So you're all blue EP on Metalheads. Whenever I do the Metalheads, whenever I did on Rinse, you know, crying a tear inside.
Oh,
it's been however long since I've been able to do that because they're all remotely just mixed now. But whenever I sort of talk to people about making like Heads music, I kind of always like to get their thoughts on, did they specifically make something of Metalhead's ilk, or like what was it tailored towards the Head sound, or did it come organically? So like, after having that, you know, this conversation about how you kind of don't follow a rule book with that EP, because we love that EP, and Beyond the Bounds is one of my favorite tunes of all time, and this is, you know, we basically bonded over that tune.
Mate, I was in Budapest last year, and me and Jeremy from the Upbeats basically had like a 15-minute backstage conversation about that one tune. Honestly, it was jokes. We bonded over that tune as well. It's like, yeah, what's your favourite? Yeah. Beyond the Bounds. Like, yeah,
I love
sick.
Jeremy.
Yeah, he's a G.
But that EP and that tune, honestly, that tune, I can talk all night about that fucking tune.
Do you know what it is? It's because it's got Frank Ocean in it.
I remember you told me that, and I was like, "That's why it's so good." That makes sense now.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, the vocal is like a cover. Someone singing a cover of Frank Ocean's tune.
Thinking about you.
I'm thinking about you.
That tune.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, it's just the way you use that little noise. That
The late vocal as well, mate. Underrated
and
feature.
that creeps. It creeps up and it creeps up from
Yeah.
the dark, like from the
Techno,
depths,
man. Techno.
bruv,
Yeah.
honestly, and it just becomes then it becomes.
Yeah.
The Reese thing with the little delay. Yeah.
One.
Yeah.
That's how I hear it, and it creeps up, and it then becomes like the main focal point of the tune. It's like I could hear that before,
Yeah.
and that just transition for me. I don't know, that had me hooked. Anyway, I'm going into a bit of a fucking monologue about this.
Welcome
one
to the
little bit
Beyond
of
the
this
Bounds
tune.
podcast
Yes.
featuring Visionobi.
and a bottle of red. But
Did I write that specifically for
yes,
Heads? No.
cool, wicked. So
I
go on.
wrote the D side first, which was called Paper Sword,
yeah.
and sent it to Lensman. And Lensman messaged me and said, "I'm going to send this to Goldie."
Cool.
And I was like, "Cool, great." And then I was sitting on a bus, driving through central London, and I looked down and there was a text message on my phone from an unknown number. And it was like, "This is Goldie. This is Goldie. I heard that tune. Write me an EP." And it was like unknown. And I was just like, "What the fuck?" And then he called me.
I love G, man.
And then he called me and he was like, "It's Halogenix." And I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Goldie." I was like, "Hi." He's like, "That tune, it's bad. Write me an EP." I was like, "Okay." And then I think he hung up the phone.
End of conversation.
Yeah, and then I had the instrumental for All Blue, which had that really bait Erykah Badu vocal on it. Oh God, I can't even remember what it's called. But anyway, it had a Erykah Badu vocal on it, and I sent that to him, and he was like, "Yeah, cool. This is the A side. I'm gonna get you a vocalist for it. I'll hit you up soon," kind of thing. I was like, "Cool." And then he phoned me and goes, "I hope you appreciate what I'm doing for you here, because I'm bringing Cleveland Watkins out of retirement for you." And I shit you not, no disrespect to Cleveland, he's an absolutely amazing dude. My first response was, "Who?" And he was like, I mean, he wasn't impressed at all with that response.
I can imagine.
As neither was I in hindsight.
He'd have slapped you if you were there in person, trust me.
Yeah. And I was in Dorset visiting my family at the time. And I remember I was on my way to go to the train in London to get to Dorset. And he phoned me and he said, "You need to send me the track and the stems and everything. Like, so because I'm having the session today." I think this was when he was still in the UK. And I sent him everything, and he was like, he was, being a lot with me on the phone. He was like, "You need to do this for me. This is going to be sick." Like, and I was like, cool. Sent it to him. And then I was in Dorset, and I think I'd gone for a walk, and there's bits in Dorset where there's like, no reception, whatever. And I got back to my mum's house and went to go and find my phone, and there was like 40 missed calls. And like voicemails, being like, "Pick up your fucking phone." I was like, "Oh my God." And I phoned him. And I was like, "Hey man, how you doing?" He was like, "I don't know. You tell me." And I was just like, "Good." And he was like, "I've been trying to phone you for 4 hours." And I was like, "I'm really sorry, man. I'm in Dorset." And he was like, "I've recorded it. I've sent you the files. Mix it. Send it to me as soon as you can." And he sent me the Cleveland Watkins tunes, the vocals, and I mixed them in. And that was that. So that was the story of the second tune. And then the other two was a Shank and All Blue, Shank, Paper Sword,
Beyond the Bounds.
Beyond the Bounds was just a random one.
Sick.
Yeah.
I like that. It was a classic Halogenix off-key rhythm that has no
it started
generic
with the break.
place in drum and bass.
I was going through my my drums and I found this think break, which didn't sound like a think break. It was really like chopped and screwed, but it still had the kind of little vocal things. And I was like, oh, this is cool. And then I found that pad and put it in a sampler and played just do-do-do, and that was it. And then the bass line came in and found the Frank Ocean acapella. I make it sound so simple.
Yeah, it's annoying. It's actually really annoying what you're doing right now. It's just like, basically, I put these 4 sounds together and the tune was done. Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, I mean, it took, when I write music, the initial process is quite quick, but then the actual finishing process is long.
Yeah.
The initial idea comes together really quickly, and then all of the finessing and the polishing just takes forever.
It's all of that and the character in it, all of the automations, and all that,
Yeah, trying to get it to sound brighter, trying to get it to, the bass to hit right or whatever. But yeah, no, it wasn't written specifically for heads. All Blue is probably, I would say, is my most headsy sounding tune.
Yeah.
Because it's sparse and minimal. I remember the first time I went to go and see Goldie at a rave was, where did Drum and Bass Arena used to do their parties? On Great Eastern Street, right near the...
it's... I posted a set of myself playing there the other day, 0T, but it's under a different name.
Where they used to do the D&B TV live stream things.
But it's got a new name now. And the old school name was like, Underground. Oh, hold on.
Was it Traffic?
It's called Trapeze now.
It wasn't Traffic back in the day, was it?
Hold on. We'll come back to you, amen, brother, listeners, on that one. I get my.
Anyway, I went to go and see him there, and I remember hearing him play some tunes, and I remember just being taken aback by how like sparse and like bold they were. It was like real kind of. It was just simple drums, bass, and then just these really big, weird alien sounds. And I remember being really obsessed with that, and that's why I always try and have these weird glitchy kind of like things in my tunes, because that's what I'm trying to recreate. I'm trying to recreate that feeling I had when I went to go and see Goldie.
Yeah.
And so I think there's probably I was gravitated towards that sound because he was playing it. So it kind of had its natural home on heads, you know?
And I guess that's almost it's actually really interesting you said that's where you got that influence from, because one of the things that I've said for a while is that kind of the Ivy Lab sound, the Alex sound in sort of 2014, I think was a bit of a game changer for like liquid drum and bass, let's say. Very clearly after the sort of first Ivy Lab tunes came out and that Alex's would have been his second album maybe, or whatever it was, a lot of people started taking or borrowing some elements like the things you just described and putting it in their tunes. There's
a really funny Metalheads podcast, Christmas podcast, I think from 2014, in which Jubei describes it as the Wabosolator. I think there was an Ivy Lab tune called Baby Grey, and it has like the kind of like the stabby kind of weird synths.
that weird synth. Yeah. Basically that sound is what I'm talking about. That
so Oblique, which was the first tune that was obviously the kind of start of Ivy Lab. And I remember those guys really fought me hard to take that sound out, and I was like, no.
Yeah.
No, it stays.
Especially with Ivy Lab, obviously bringing 3 producers together, but there's not that many 3-person groups that have been so successful and almost like so coherent. Like, how was that an intentional thing? Did Ivy Lab like start like that, or was it just literally you were just in the same place at the same time and just started making tunes?
So I met Stray through a mutual friend of mine, a guy Finn, who I grew up with. He went to uni in Leeds with Jay. And this was when I was like, he went to uni when I must have been 18. So this was kind of, I was 3 years into my producing, you know, and he asked me to burn him a CD to take to uni with him. And I sent him burn him a CD of all my kind of old tunes.
Didn't have 4 tunes on it, though.
No.
It's just the same 4 tunes.
No, I had like loads of really rubbish demos.
Nice.
And so I kind of met Jay through that. Jay kind of hit me up and was like, oh, I know Finn. He sent me he played me some of your tunes. They're really cool. And my older brother went to Nottingham Uni with Saber's younger brother, and he would come back, you know, during the holidays, and he knew that I was into drum and bass, and he would be like, oh, my friend's older brother's a drum and bass producer. And so I was talking to Saber and I was talking to Stray, and at the same time, Stray had started a kind of friendship with Saber because Saber had just written an album for Critical. Stray was having his first releases on Critical, and I think Stray did a remix for Saber's album. And so it just so happened that at that point in time, we were all talking to each other separately.
Yeah, some weird triangle, yeah.
And I remember I had a studio session with Saber, went to his yard, unbeknownst to him, his wife invited me around to his house because she knew how much I wanted to get in the studio with him. And I went to a gig at that same place. Did you find out what it was called?
I did. I think it's East Village,
yes,
if I'm not much mistaken. And it's now called Trapeze, if it's still there after,
So I went
2020.
I went to a D&BA night at East Village where Saber was playing, and his wife was there, and I just got chatting to her, and she was like, you should come round. You should come round and have a session. I was like, yes. And I remember turning up, and he was there, and he was like, what are you doing here? And like, we sat in the studio together, and I didn't touch the computer at all. I was too scared.
Yeah.
I was just like, yeah, sounds great. And yeah, at the same time, I did a session with Stray, and we wrote a tune called Rude Industry, which came out on Drum and Bass Arena. And Jay was in the studio with Saber, and like, I remember sending Jay a tune like Saber and Halogenix, and he was like, and he sent me things, Saber and Stray. I was like, oh my God, we're all shooting. And then we kind of just met up, and we all went to Saber's house, which is around here in Finsbury Park. And we wrote Oblique. That was the first thing we wrote. And so there was never any intention. Yeah. There was no intention for that stuff. It's not like we kind of sat down and formulated, we're going to become a super group. It was just kind of like the stars just aligned for us.
At what point did it happen that you decided like to do that then? Like after you'd made Oblique?
Because when your first couple of releases were Saber, Stray, Halogenix,
that was Kazra.
St. Clair, I think it was, or whatever came out as well. Yeah.
That was Kazra's idea.
Big up Kaz.
Yeah. He's like, you need to come up with a name.
Yeah. Because
you can't keep on putting Saber, Stray, and Halogenix on records. It's too much.
Yeah.
And I think, you've got a good thing going here. So just, cement it. And I've still got the piece of paper at my house where we were writing down all the names. We knew that we liked the word Ivy, and we wanted another word that kind of symbolized a group. And so we had like Ivy Mob, Ivy Clan, Ivy,
sick.
Ivy Unit. And then Ivy Lab was the one, and it was like, we were like, that's cool.
Yeah. See, your story is way cooler than mine. I had a dream about it, and then we took the piss and we took the vowels out.
But you know what? There's another meaning behind Ivy Lab, which kind of made it, which kind of cemented it as being the one. It was that initially we were making music in Saber's studio, and then we switched to my studio at my house, and my studio was in the basement of my house, and there was a door that led out into the garden. The whole back wall was covered in ivy. And so it was the Ivy Lab.
Yeah.
And so it had like that double tick.
It's quite romantic though, yeah.
Yeah.
It's way better than Pola and Bryson.
Yeah, it is.
You know what I mean? Once it's a last name, that one's Pola. Terrible. Sorry, man. You weren't even.
I'm not even giving you a response, bro.
I felt like you hadn't spoken in a while, so I thought I'd get you involved.
I'm listening. I'm finding it all so entertaining.
Yeah.
All right.
So taking a bit of a stick for his name today.
Yeah,
for sure. I think the other interesting thing, obviously, as well, is the fact that you guys strayed into the whole halftime thing, and then was like you kind of were at the precipice, good word, of the wave of halftime, I'd say. And obviously, since you've just been Halogenix, the Laudel thing's happened. And that's kind of been, you've done some hip hop stuff, done a 140 thing on 1985. Is this, talk to me about Laudel. Is this just the home for everything that's not drum and bass?
Well, I think the Laudel story needs to be prefaced by the end to Ivy Lab story, which was, the thing about the Ivy Lab story was that we had no idea how big it was going to get for us. It kind of happened fairly quickly and fairly intensely. And if you have three people that are kind of on that ride together, and you're suddenly, your fee has gone up like 300%. You're suddenly starting to get offers to play huge festivals, big stages. You're getting headline status. You're flying around the world. it's a lot to deal with, man. And you know, from the outside, it might look like really good, and people are like, "Oh man, it's so cool," and like, you know, you guys are like really smashing it, whatever. But it was intense. It was really intense, and like any relationship, which is what it was, that intensity has an impact. And the impact for me was that, you know, I struggled with it a lot. I struggled with the rate in which it grew. I struggled with my sense of individuality within the group, because I was the third one, you know. I remember very early on in the Ivy Lab days, we did a show in Brighton, and I got off the decks, and it was me and Stray doing the show, and we were talking to someone, and he was like, "Oh, who are you?" And I was like, "Halogenix." And he was like, "Oh, you're the third one."
Oh, really?
Yeah. And
wow.
That's mad to me.
Yeah, that is mad to me.
You know,
as well,
I kind of got over that. It was, you know, I got over that kind of that ego hit fairly quickly, but it still resonated for me, where it was like, out of the three of us, I'm the one with the least individual kind of identity. For me, that's how it existed for me, you know. And so when it began to grow, when it grew really quickly, and I was losing my sense of identity even more, and you know, the traveling and all of that stuff, it takes its toll, you know. I started to fight more for wanting to kind of put my stamp on it, wanting to have more control. And you know, I was met with resistance, and it was, you know, there was no animosity there. It was just, it became more of a struggle for me. And so I made the decision to leave, because it was more important to me at that time to establish a sense of identity for myself than it was to enjoy, you know, to reap the rewards of that particular project. Because we never set out that it was going to be a long-term thing. You know, we cemented the name, but you know, when the halftime thing started happening, we never knew that it was going to do what it did. We never understood just how big it was going to get. And because, I mean, we couldn't have, we would have had no idea that the timing of what we were doing and the kind of what was happening in America and what we were doing over here, that these universes were suddenly going to collide, and something was going to pop up that was really cool. And so to tie that into the Laudel thing, you know, I left Ivy Lab, and I think a lot of people just assumed it was because I just wanted to write drum and bass, and Ivy Lab stopped writing drum and bass, right?
Yeah.
I was like, yes, literally like, pop the champagne, he's back.
And there's definitely truth to that, but that wasn't the only reason, you know. And so the kind of alternative side of Ivy Lab, which is now for them, it's like it's their main thing. That's still that was still very much of who I was, and so I needed an outlet for it. And so Laudel was born. Laudel existed for years. You sent
me a couple beats like years ago that we tried to do.
Were they marked Laudel?
They were marked Laudel, mate, and they were sick. And that was probably the point, because I always thought that you know, Oblique and the like sort of more liquid based Ivy Lab tunes we were talking about, I always thought it was funny you said about being the third guy, or you know, whatever people's opinions are, but I always really saw your influence in those tunes, and probably didn't know really about any like halftime background, obviously, because the Ivy Lab sound was so new when it moved to that kind of, you know, created an own genre.
Yeah, I guess Stray was kind of doing that stuff on Exit when he first
that was very much more dillery kind of stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
We took the kind of the drum and bass sound design aesthetic and applied it to halftime, which is what we were listening to. We were listening to that happen in America, but it happened in a completely different way. Like dubstep happened in America, and then all of the really cool producers in dubstep got bored of it really quickly and started writing like much more chilled out stuff. At the same time, in places like LA, you had Low End Theory, which was the kind of school. It was the kind of Bauhaus equivalent of like producers in LA. and you had all those people who were starting to experiment with writing with kind of very much more electronic style music. And then those worlds collided because dubstep in America took a lot of influence sonically from drum and bass, and in its kind of very kind of raw, gnarly synth stuff. Then you combine that with the LA beat scene, and it just so happened that we kind of arrived at the same point, but from completely different places.
Yeah.
And so we were listening to people like Mr. Carmack, and we were like, this is kind of what we're doing. And it came to a point where we were trying to write beats like Mr. Carmack, but because for the most part, just like anything, when there's the at the start of the wave, nobody really knows about it. We were listening to Carmack and like creaming ourselves, being like, this is so cool.
His early stuff was so sick, man.
And some of the early Ivy Lab beat stuff, we were just trying to rip off Mr. Carmack.
Yeah.
That was it.
Does he know that? Yeah.
I don't know. But and yeah, I think because that style was unknown over here, people looked at us like we were these crazy innovators, you know, and we were innovative, but we innovated from our perspective.
I still think you can't take that away from yourself.
No, and like, I wanted to clarify something I said earlier. When I said I wanted to kind of, you know, my sense of identity within the group, like, yeah, I acknowledged that I had a big part to play in the sonic identity of Ivy Lab, but like, I wasn't, and this is going to sound selfish, but I wasn't satisfied with how much I felt like I was a part of it, you know? And so for the decision to kind of, to move away from that was a selfish one ultimately, but in hindsight, one that I'm happy I made.
You can flip that though, because surely it would have been just as selfish to stay in that and, you know, earn that money and do what, you know, for instance, continue in something you're not, whereas actually you came back to, you know, doing something that you wanted to do from a selfish perspective, but actually gifted loads of other people loads of beautiful music that we'd all wanted to fucking hear for a long time.
Yeah.
So,
and I guess like me and Jack can probably relate to what you're saying slightly because we're in duos, which maybe isn't the same as there's less dynamics, but like there's definitely points where like sometimes like if I've just got this is a slightly different skew in it, but like if I've got like a really busy week, for example, or a really busy 2 weeks and I've not really touched Ableton and Tom cracks out 10 ideas, then it's almost that like, yeah, you almost feel sometimes as if like the sound is being driven more by one person, for example, or you can like ebb and flow is what I'm trying to say, basically, like depending on circumstances.
But that's the beauty of being in a group.
But that's the nice thing, That's the nice thing though, because obviously we're all humans, we've all got different things. Like Tom's buying a house at the moment, so he's like super busy, and we're finishing an EP, so it's like you just got to make it work. But like it's the dynamic's interesting when you're working with someone else in a creative venture.
Yeah. And you know, like you said, you guys know as much as I do. It gets sometimes it gets a lot, and yeah, the intensity and the pace in which it grew, I wasn't comfortable with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's that.
Do you think that'll happen to the Galaxy Visionobi partnership?
No, basically what happened there was there's better MCs than you that we can with. So.
I get subbed out for SP in about 2 years, isn't it? Like, as soon as you get big enough, it's like, oh shit, what Stu? Oh, we can work with Stu regularly now. Shit, laters.
No, never that, mate. Never that.
I don't believe it. But yeah. I'd sub myself out for Stu.
Fair. Can't argue with that.
Yeah, you can't argue with that.
So I was going to ask with the Lordell thing is, like you've just touched a different few styles already. Is there anything else that you haven't done that you want to do next with that?
With Lordell?
Yeah. Or could we see a Lordell techno track?
No, I don't think so. I wanted to create a separation between the drum and bass and the non-drum and bass, but I didn't want it just to be like one thing for drum and bass and then one thing for everything else. You know, there's still a kind of cohesiveness to the Lordell stuff.
Yeah.
With you know 140 or dubstep, whatever you want to call it, coming back in vogue at the moment, it kind of made sense for me to put that under that umbrella. But initially, like I was saying to Rich earlier, like the Laudel thing was just a way for me to label stuff that wasn't drum and bass.
Yeah.
And in terms of different stuff, like I think it's just going to be, I have no expectations about what that project is or will be.
Yeah.
For me, it's just an outlet for something that is still very important to me sonically. And it's also like, it plays a part in that I've made a conscious decision to keep Halogenix as just drum and bass.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want there to be any confusion with what people were going to get as consumers of my music, you know, which is, and that was, I learned that lesson from Ivy Lab, because when we wrote drum and bass, when we made the switch, even though for us it took a fairly long time, because we had always written hip hop, whether it be individually or as a trio. When we first started putting it out, however, and then when it became a thing, we put out the 2020 album. I think the way it landed was like, we are now no longer drum and bass artists, and we are now hip hop producers, and that alienated a lot of people, and like understandably, right? If you're listening to, like, you know, Live on Your Smile and Oblique, and then suddenly you hear like a really gully halftime tune, you're going to be like, wait, what? Has someone just like copied the name or something? This is totally, I don't understand this, you know?
Yeah.
And so initially when I'd left Ivy Lab, I had all this halftime stuff, and I put out an EP, and it was half drum and bass, halftime. And it didn't really do what I wanted it to do. And I had too much expectation. I was fresh out of Ivy Lab, so I was just I just wanted something to happen. And it was a mistake in hindsight. And so that was kind of what spurred me to just separate them out. And yeah, now the stuff that I'm writing, the Laudel stuff that I'm writing now, is kind of in a similar vein. But as much as I say I have no expectation about it, what I hope, or what I would like to happen to it, is that it just becomes a moniker that I use for stuff that I make for other people. Like that's what I want to do long term, you know. I want to produce for
rappers
and singers and what have you. Because I love that stuff. I think that style of music lends itself well to that genre and that community.
Yeah, I mean, like, I watched Kenny Beats' YouTube channel.
Ridiculous.
He looks like he has the best life, man.
It's ridiculous,
like,
yeah.
That's the guy.
He did like a Rick Rubin thing.
Yeah, on the podcast. Yeah, I
Mad.
haven't checked it out yet, yeah.
It's mad.
If you want to make some music like that for me, I'll be, you know, down.
Sick.
I'm doing loads of hip hop at the moment.
You've got, I saw something the other day, you've got like 40 tunes written.
Yeah, literally I'm the longest guy.
Oh,
I've got an album folder that's sitting with his lot and loads of road
Are we talking
stuff.
about the album again, mate? Every fucking episode.
Shit, we did say we weren't going to as well.
It's because it's an album people actually want to hear, John.
Oh,
Was that a shot?
shocking.
Was that a shot at me, bro? What?
No, not at all.
I did want to ask though, Halogenix album, is that something that you care about, want to do?
Good question.
That's a very good question.
I think an album would happen if, like, an album would happen at the point in which I'd written enough stuff that I felt that it warranted it. I don't think I would set out to write an album. And that's because, like we said at the start of this show, like, I'm not putting pressure on myself at the moment.
Yeah.
I don't feel there's really a need for it. And it's just not how people consume music nowadays. As just to call it a body of work, you know, or use it as a promotional tool, whatever. But like, it's drum and bass. And I think an album, for me, and how I see and how I visualize my music being consumed, I think unless unless I was really happy with every single track on it, I wouldn't want to do it. And I think it would take too long for me to get to that stage. And because of how quickly I write music, which is not very quickly, I'd start out, and then by the time I got to the end, I'd want to can everything that I read at the start. And so it would be a perpetual process of writing new things.
That is the album process, I think. Like, we've only written one, but we found that like the stuff.
How did you find, are you glad you did it?
You know what? From a sort of personal goal point of view,
yeah,
and like that kind of moment in which the test press comes through your letterbox and you can hold this piece of work that's like, you know, this is my milestone moment, definitely.
Yeah.
Going through the process and like I love Shogun and I love all the guys there, but going through the process of something that was so personal to me and Tom, and then sort of, it's difficult to have it critiqued and kind of tweaked in a way.
Yeah.
Because like with EPs, and I don't say I don't care about the EPs that we write, we definitely care about them. But you know that like it's 4 tracks, like you're going to get another 4 tracks in like 3 months or 4 months or whatever.
Yeah.
With your first album, it's very much like this has to be exactly the way we see it, and it definitely that turned out that way. But the process of getting there is tricky. So I always want to do an album just as a like music maker to be like, this is stamp, like especially because like my and Tom's styles developed over such a long amount, like such a short period of time. Sorry, we kind of wanted to rubber stamp GLXY up until 2020. Be like, this is kind of us in a nutshell, and now we can do other shit. So like, I think the next EP we've got coming out stylistically does vary a little bit. It still sounds like us, but it's like a progression. So like the album's a very nice chapter, if you like ends a chapter.
I haven't heard it.
You not heard the album? Okay.
You never sent it to me.
What? Are you sure?
You didn't send it.
I don't think that's true.
I don't
think that's true. I don't think that's true.
We'll reveal in the next episode.
I'm going to throw out there. I don't think that's true because I remember you giving me feedback on one tune that you really liked.
Get your WhatsApps out. Come on.
Yeah. It'll be on Instagram, mate. We can dig it out. We'll post a screenshot on Instagram. The Ruby Wood tune. You mentioned me saying I really like that tune.
Is that on this EP?
No. Sorry, the EP. You mean?
Yeah.
Oh, so I thought it was on the album.
No, I've not heard the EP either.
Well, you've got the first single.
Yeah. I want the whole EP.
I want your whole album, Jack.
To be honest.
Oh, man like John, you know,
right.
like that. Right, you don't have to wait for promo, you know.
No. Look, listen.
I'm on the B-list.
Considering that email that I sent you the other day.
Mate, Harry sent me your album time ago.
Yeah, I know.
No, but sorry. Okay, misunderstood. I thought it was about the album. No, EP. To be honest, only 2 tunes are mastered. The other 4 we're submitting end of this week. You'll get it, man. Don't worry.
So the thing that came out, it was just a single.
It's the first single off. I'm not supposed to talk about it, am I? It's the first single off the EP.
Yeah, we can talk about it because this isn't going to go out for like 3-4 weeks.
That's true.
Yeah, it'll probably be out by this point.
No, that's true. Yeah. So it's a 6-track EP, 5 drum and bass tunes, 1 garage tune.
Is it?
Yeah. Yeah. So it's interesting actually when you're talking about separating the two, because me and Tom both love making other styles of music, but we haven't created another moniker yet to do it.
Yeah, I mean that subject is a personal one.
Yeah.
You know, there's no right or wrong thing about it.
Yeah, like me and Harry have got techno tune on the next album.
Yeah, actually, which just caught me out, actually, that did.
I got some techno bars.
Techno bars. No one's ever said that
techno bars
in the history of the world. But no,
they definitely have. This album always a joke.
This album topic is really interesting because this is your 3rd album.
This is our 3rd album.
You're about to do your first one after years and years of trying. We've done one. You're saying that you probably don't. Like,
I don't know. At this point in time, it's like, you know, at this very point in time, I can't see myself doing one that I'm going to be happy with anytime soon.
Fair.
I think it's a very personal preference thing, though, isn't it? Like, I genuinely, I know that the art of the album isn't the way that people consume content anymore. But I do.
Still care.
Me and Harry just absolutely love writing albums. It's just such a kind of like, it's a big experience for us as well.
It's very self-indulgent, isn't it?
Yeah, like we
which
love
is nice.
This is kind of what I want to actually, what I wanted to dig into, because I really enjoyed what you said about this. And I understand that people will be like, oh, you're kind of doing that because that's how music's consumed. But not only is that like a sensible approach, you're also, because I'm from the same, you know, the same reason I want to produce an album is the same reason that you said, John, is really because I've always envisaged.
Oh, red wine.
It was going so well.
It was going
Visionobi.
I've always envisaged an album as like something that I would do. And, you know, it's always been a personal goal of mine. I don't know whether it was one of yours or not, and we can get onto that. But hearing you talk about it, it's very admirable because you've detached completely from the egotistical side of things, which is what you were just touching upon, which is what I wanted to speak about. Because
I would disagree with that.
Really, though?
Because I think my ego gets in the way of me putting my stamp on something that I'm happy with. Because I like I mean, my standard is just unrealistically high. That for every 10 tunes that I write, only one will make it through. And it's probably even lower than that still. And I don't know, maybe that you could argue that that's not necessarily ego, but I would, conceptually and like hypothetically, of course I'd love to do an album. If I could lock myself in the studio for the next 2 weeks and write 10, 12 tunes that I'd be happy with, then of course, put it out on an album. I can, hold something, show my family and be like, I wrote an album. There's something that they understand,
Yeah.
But I think that I get in my own way. And of course I guess that's ego.
That's ego from the less sort of obvious perspective, isn't it? That's not the ego of everything I write's fucking sick. Like I churn out an album in a day. Like,
No.
It's actually... You're kind of questioning your own ego, and you're almost, I don't know.
It's funny you said that.
It's very
actually.
Interesting.
Did you see that tweet from, I can't remember who it was, some American electronic music producer tweeted about their album before it came. Did you see the tweet?
Yeah.
And it was like, this album is
the best thing.
It's the best thing. It's super different. It's really challenging to the listener. It's somewhat pioneering, sort of since the days of Daft Punk. There's nothing been ever better than this. Literally, someone wrote a tweet. It was mental, wasn't it? Like someone wrote a tweet like that in all seriousness about their album before it came out.
They gave themselves like an Enemy 5 stars.
Yeah, it was mad.
I can't talk, so I mention mine every podcast at the moment. So I'm probably like I'm slightly less bait than that guy, but I'm on his wave. I get it.
No, it's the baitest tweet I've ever seen. It was ridiculous.
That sounds ridiculous.
Like, I guess delving into the whole ego thing. I refuse to put anything out that I'm not like really, really happy with, and so I think that is ego.
Yeah, you know what? It's funny actually. I know what you're saying because we learned that not the hard way, because it's not like we've been criticised for music we put out, but
is that not quality control?
I think that's pride. I don't think it's ego. I think there's a fine line between the two.
Yeah. You could be right. I'm not saying that.
It is ego. Let's not get it twisted. It is ego, but you are being very clever by questioning your own ego to the point where you don't allow anything, from a quality control perspective to filter through for whether it's you're almost you don't want to damage your own ego maybe through that. I'm not sure. There's a massive circle going on here, but I think it's a more admirable way about going about things, as opposed to being like, I'll release everything I'll put out because I'm a fucking bad man.
And that is a route. Some people do take that route. Just releasing music every month, and it does work to a certain extent. The question is though, that tune they released in March 2019, is anyone going to be listening to it in March 2020? Probably not.
That's it. Like, are you writing tunes? Are you writing tunes because you want 500,000 Spotify plays, or are you writing tunes because you want people to enjoy music that you're writing and enjoy it with you?
Spotify is a mad one, though. I find the argument about Spotify really fascinating because I think it's undeniable that it has changed how people write music.
100%.
And the arguments for whether it's good or bad have equal merit amongst themselves. Like sitting down and writing something and being creative and putting your mind to something with the end goal of having like a target of numbers and people listening to it. And I mean, it's just a transference of like Instagram followers to Spotify listeners. Yeah. And I find the whole thing incredibly toxic.
Yeah. Applying metrics to creative output is the most dangerous thing.
Yeah.
For sure.
And
quite often backfires as well, right?
It depends. Again, it depends what your goal is.
Me?
No. I'm looking a while, mate.
It depends what your goal is, though. Again, if your goal is to rack up those numbers and then, platform a career off of that and kind of have success in the short to medium term, then absolutely it's a viable strategy.
But it seems to me that, because if I look at my Spotify, the stuff that does well above and beyond anything else is liquid stuff.
Yeah.
Right? and big dance floor tracks I get hardly any notice on it. And so I find that sometimes I'm seduced by that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I just need to write more soulful things.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, nah, man. Like, I want to write really aggressive, gnarly tunes. And then I go, yeah, but it doesn't get me any Spotify love. And then I go, and then I look at the metrics where it's like, you need to, for every million plays, you get like $2,000 or whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah. I guess it's interesting because the time and climate we're talking about it right now, where there's no shows, it's completely relevant. But in the world where there's club shows and there's festivals and there's tours, those underground kind of anthems, I call them, like the bangers, they're not like Radio 1 Annie Mac playlist tunes. They're like the kind of the club tune that pops off, the Bledges, the Dragon Forces, whatever. Those are the career builders, right? Because
what I wonder though is if there is something going on behind the scenes where labels and A&Rs are kind of manufacturing they're manufacturing that scenario for themselves. They're creating that phenomena by virtue of them being a label because they get 50% of everything.
Yeah, so the idea of playlisting, isn't it, really? Like,
yeah,
that playlist,
and it's how it's so strong.
Yeah. And
like, if you get playlists, I remember the first time I got New Music Friday playlisted, and you get like an email and stuff like that. And I was working with somebody, wasn't a manager, but he was a manager, but he wasn't my manager. And I remember telling him about it, and he was like, the most excited he's ever been about anything I've ever done was when I told him I got playlisted on New Music Friday.
Yeah.
And I was like, I got so gassed.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, sick.
It's
New
almost
Music Friday.
It's overtaken from the radio curators, isn't it? This is the new radio curation, is that playlist thing, right?
Yeah.
So I guess like in the 80s, let's go that far back. If your stuff got played in the radio, like a big radio station on the prime time, that was it. Your career was set.
But there was monetary feedback from that.
True. Yeah, true.
Whereas now it doesn't seem like there is.
No.
It's
vanity metrics.
What does New Music Friday get you? Just like exposure on that particular
It
day?
gets,
a week
it
of
gets
being
sent
on
to
that
a
playlist.
lot of playlists,
It's
basically.
like, it's got like a million followers or something like that.
It's
And
a huge playlist.
yeah. And it kind of gets fed to everybody and they listen to it. And you can just like post it on your Instagram,
And then you make 50p.
basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. So to kind of unlearn that point, the album thing for you will happen when it kind of happens, basically. There's no pressure, expectation.
I think there's a lot of pressure and expectation,
Okay.
which is why I'm not doing it.
This is the circle going back.
Yeah.
In intricacies of
Like my
Lawrence's
ambition,
mind.
my ambition for an album would be so
Brand.
so
High.
huge
Yeah.
that it would crush me under the weight of it.
I rate this.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
I
no.
think like I wouldn't want to do it if I couldn't pull off my ambition.
Yeah.
Because I am, like, I say this quite a lot, and I don't want this to sound like I'm big-headed. I am incredibly ambitious, but I lack I feel I lack the ability to match my ambition.
Execute.
Yeah. And I acknowledge that I am able, right? But my ambition is sometimes too much.
Do you think there's...
That's awesome.
Do you think there's...
It is and it isn't.
It's annoying for you, but it's awesome for the listener when
Do you
it
think
filters
there's
through.
a...
Yeah.
Do you think there's a limitation that's physical, i.e. like you haven't got... And I don't want to make it reductive to like you haven't got the right synth, for example, but do you think it's a limitation that's kind of in your head? Or if you knew that you could try this new technique or buy this new bit of gear or whatever, you could potentially unlock that next level?
For me, it's about musicality.
Right.
Drum and bass for me holds a unique position as attracting a type of producer that can flourish in the scene and possess very little musical ability.
Yeah, nerds. Yeah. Absolutely.
They obsess over transients and like synthesizing drums, and can make some incredible music. Don't get me wrong, but the musicality of it, like the traditional sense of the word music, has very little. And so I'm kind of interested in expanding the musicality of my music. And, you know, I think my music is very musical.
Yeah.
But for me, that's something that I find I'm always underwhelmed by. Not underwhelmed, but I wish it was a bit better.
It could do more, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's where this guy holds a bloody trump card, and Harry Bryson, so annoying.
Super musical.
He's like the grade 8 jazz pianist. Yeah. Like, he's just the guy. Like, I've been in a few studio sessions room, and like when I write a piano melody, it's like it's I actually have to try really hard to write.
It's like 45 minutes of solid mad effort just to come up with like a good
4-bar,
3-chord, like
And Harry just sits down and goes dup 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 dup, sick, done.
Yeah,
like,
it's
literally
mad.
it's
Like,
that quick. Yeah,
I did a garage tune with Harry. That's one of the ones that you know you talking about earlier. That I'm sort of
Is it on
sitting
your album?
No, it's something that'll probably come out in like 10 years time because I'm so long, but. What I watched him do in the studio in like 10 minutes, I've never been so. I wasn't like, fuck you. I was like, fucking yes. I was like losing my shit. I was like, I don't care. I'm not a producer. Keep that fucking shit coming. Like, it just evolved so quickly and was so like mad vibes. And because it was garage, I was like, this is where I want to be.
That then, man. Like, I've started teaching myself piano because I'm a guitarist by trade, so I did grade 7 guitar when I was like 16, but never like, it's weird because like at the time guitar seemed like the coolest instrument you could play.
Yeah, of course.
And now that I look back and I'm 29, I'm like making drum and bass, I wish I could play piano. Like,
and I took some lessons in 2019 just before Christmas. And I learned a bunch.
Yeah.
And I did a session with somebody actually just after lockdown 1, when they kind of eased everything up. A guy I met doing a session for a rapper, and he was just this absolute bad boy key player. And he basically came around to my studio, and I just played a bunch of drum loops, and he just played piano for like 4 hours.
Just laid it down.
Yeah. And so I've got this like, and we recorded all the MIDI and we changed instruments and stuff like that. So I've got all the MIDI.
It's got this library.
Yeah. And it's just absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
So that's something, that's something I consider as like something that I don't possess, that if I did, I would be happy with what I did. Because like you, I either have to rely on samples, or it takes me a while to figure out, to get out of my head what I want, or it you know, what I have in my head, just I don't know how to do. But I guess that's what limits, that's the kind of physical manifestation of my limiting ambition, if that makes sense.
With regards to your perfectionism, out of interest, have you ever had a chat about this with Stu SP? Because I feel like you two have this in common in my eyes. Mate,
all the time. So Stu lives like 2 minutes from my house, and I see him at the reservoir every now and again. We send each other little like snippets of tunes. I remember speaking to him like 6 months ago, and he was working on this garage EP, and he played it to me in the car. I was like, yeah, sick. I was like, I mean, his garage is ridiculously sick.
His garage is
ridiculously sick. And then 6 months later, he played it to me again, and I was like, no, I've heard this before, Stu. And he was like, no, I've added all the little, the salt and pepper. He's like, mate, I swear to God, Gab's just so pissed off at me. I'm just adding like white noise over everything, and just like adding, changing the hi-hats and. Yeah, I mean, but that's his craft, Yeah.
It's similar in that way is what I'm getting at, because what you were saying to me, I've had numerous conversations with Stu, and obviously we know each other as well, but never gone into this much depth. And like, I love that like passion that Stu has, and I can kind of see that resonating with you. That's why I want to make the comparison, because I know you're obviously pals. So I figured that was probably something that had gone
definitely.
Down. Yeah,
definitely. I mean, we nerd over 808s and garage like you wouldn't believe, man.
We've had a few Stu sessions where like we just listened to like obscure garage at like 3 a.m. and he's just analysed every tune. Like,
have you ever been at a house party with Stu?
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. That's where it happens.
He's like the Spotify dog.
Yeah, and Gabs as well.
Gabs is ridiculous.
Shout out Gabs. Hold tight Gabs. I took Gabs and Stu to a house party in Manor House, and like Gabs was coming with the fucking jungle licks from like way back.
I remember
and I had no idea.
Stu sent me a link to some Spotify album, and it was full of these really weird samples. And I was like, bro, where do you find this stuff? And he was like, mate, Gabs. I was like, damn, man.
Certified G.
Yeah.
First like tunes, first vinyl, but I mean, you said it was the optical, Russian optical tune.
My first vinyl that I owned.
Yeah.
Yeah, go on.
The first vinyl that I owned was Block Rockin' Beats by Chemical Brothers.
Oh, sick.
And that was when I was 10. My mum owns a skincare manufacturing business down
called
in
Halogenix, right?
Called Halogenix, yeah.
That's it.
Called Natural Skincare Solutions. No, based down in the southwest. But when I was young, we used to live in London, and when she first started, she got a stall at Spitalfields Market, and we used to sell like candles and stuff at Spitalfields Market. And the first day we did it, next to us was a guy selling vinyls, and he was this kind of like, I can't remember, he must have been like in his late 30s at the time, and he was just playing like old garage and like jungle and all this kind of stuff. And I was just obsessed with it because this was around that I was 10. I remember it was around the time when I had that first drum and bass CD from my brother.
Yeah.
And I kind of struck up this kind of friendship with him because I was always like kind of hanging around and listening to the music. And he would let me, like when he needed to go off somewhere, he would let me like man the stall. It's just like 10-year-old kid selling records.
Shot in vinyl.
And at the end of the day, he was like, take whatever you want. Pick one record and take whatever you want. And I took Block Rockin' Beats by Chemical Brothers.
Sick.
And I lost it. I don't know where it is now. Yeah, it's a real shame.
Do you still spin vinyl at all? Or like, what's vinyl for you now? Is it just more of a keepsake or?
I buy vinyl very rarely, and it's when something that I really want comes out on vinyl. The last vinyl I bought was like an Ital Tech thing on Planet Mu.
Yeah.
Just because I love Ital Tech stuff, and I just wanted it on vinyl. Before that was like a Burial thing. I don't really buy it. As a producer, it's an interesting one because it's like a kind of, it's like a seal it's like a stamp.
It's that milestone thing, man. Yeah.
Are you a vinyl producer? It might sound old guardy and kind of like, oh, all these old guys on vinyl, like, who cares? You know? But there's still a market for it.
I think it depends. Like, it's funny because like I still consider us fairly young-ish. I'm almost 30 to be fair. 30 in 6 months, less than 6 months. But the vinyl thing is still massive for me.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
same.
I think maybe because I grew up on the whole like early Shogun, early Hospital, early Critical, that type of thing.
I refused to put out any music until it was going to be on vinyl.
Yeah.
I had offers to sign tunes and they were going to come out digitally.
Yeah.
And I was like, no.
I think it's
I'm
just
going to wait.
what school you come from, basically, isn't it? It's the whole vinyl that actually towards
And
vinyl.
I came from that school of like buying records.
Yeah, exactly.
And I had a job and I spent a lot of money on records, and I worked in Soho. I worked in post-production for years before I started music, and before I started like music as a career. And I was at Black Market.
Sick.
Every 2 or 3 days with like Miss Pink. And I was like, where's all the dubs? Show me the dubs.
Good old Ray as well.
Yeah,
sick.
man. They were all in there. And I remember like, I'd go in and she'd have like a little selection. She's like, I've got some like this new Break white label. And I was like, bought.
Yeah, sick.
And I've got, to be fair, I don't have in comparison to some people, I don't have that many vinyls, but I've got a fair amount. So yeah, I mean, it's still important to me. But yeah, first one, Chemical Brothers.
You connect with the aesthetic, and like that shop was a vibe, man. Walking downstairs in there, like I'm like Hertfordshire, but when I was like 14, me and my mates used to get the train, and and also we'd go there, and then you'd have HMV that actually had a section that was actually relatively decent back in the day
on Oxford Street,
and a few others around that, and that was like my Saturday spent doing that, and it was I think you do cling on to those memories. It's like, well, I still love garage.
Yeah, exactly. Because you can't. There's nothing like it, and the music was founded off of that medium. It was played such an integral part of the culture. And I mean, nowadays, if I sent a bunch of tunes if I was going to put out something, and someone said to me, "Yeah, we're not going to do vinyl," I probably wouldn't be too upset.
Yeah,
I might just be like, yeah, it's fine. I understand. Yeah.
Has that happened recently with any releases?
No.
Critical do everything about Rush, don't they? And
selective.
Yeah, fair. But then again, like you said yourself, your own standard's so high that I feel like you put that much effort into a tune, it probably should come out on vinyl.
It deserves it.
It deserves it. Yeah.
I mean, the artwork as well. Like that was
something I was going to ask you about, because especially that independent EP whole concept was just ridiculous. Like even from the merch, and even linking that to the charitable thing you did as well with the Black Lives Matter charities, which I thought was amazing.
Yeah, safe.
Like that whole. Yeah, the whole thing. Is that a personal mate of yours?
That's a real old friend of mine. Yeah, Hold Tight Bertie.
Yeah, man, he smashed it.
He's been at art. He did the All Blue. He did the Metalheads.
Oh, really?
Well. Yeah,
the car and the
because I'd rate it. I was gonna. Yeah,
nice.
That's bad.
And you know, I've always wanted him to be involved in stuff that I do, and yeah, he's such an absolute G when it comes to drawing. And we kind of work well together because I have quite a strong vision of what I want, and his aesthetic kind of lends itself to my vision. And so I was just like, it's like themed, like the title tune Dragon Force is you know, Japanese themed. It has like kung fu samples in it and stuff. And so there's a film called Dragon Force, which is where the sample comes from.
I wondered that because it sounds like one of the OG like Power Ranger things.
Have you not seen it?
Bro,
it's like a fucking classic.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, right. I've got to watch that.
Absolutely crazy.
It's on YouTube.
Sick.
Because I was writing it, and I was writing that tune, and I was like, I really want just something that goes, no, what was it? I was writing the tune, and when I saved the project for the first time, you know, you get to that scene, you're like, what the fuck are you going to call it?
Project names. Yeah.
Shit roller, whatever, you know. I was just like Dragon Force, and I just called it Dragon Force, and then it kind of was just called Dragon Force. It didn't have the vocal in it.
Yeah.
And I was like, there must
be someone saying
there must be something that says Dragon Force, in a kind of kung fu style. And I googled it, and lo and behold, is a film called Dragon Force. And it's just like, there's so much of it. They're going Dragon Force. And it's like really cheesy.
It's one of those really bad,
badly acted, terrible, but really fascinating kind of
sick.
like insight into that culture of movie.
Yeah.
And I found a couple of those little clips, the little kind of vocal clips. And it just had such an amazing aesthetic to it. These ninjas all dressed in red, like rescuing this princess. And a really jokes bad guy, and it was like set in like in a mixture between America and Japan, and you know, and so I told Bertie to watch the movie, and I was like, I want it to be like a ninja, and they're saving like some princess, and they're like jumping down from a tree kind of thing. And he was like, he sent me a couple of sketches, and we kind of tweaked it a bit, and then he sent me the final one. He like sent me what it was kind of when it become developed, and I was just like, bruv,
that's it.
This is next. This is so sick.
Yeah.
And it kind of it became a real selling point of the EP. I think.
100%, man. Yeah. 100%.
And we had always planned to do merch, but we were just a bit long about it. And then when the George Floyd thing happened, we just were like, this is like something that's happened that we feel passionate about, and there's an opportunity to do some good. And we with the t-shirts, like we were kind of, it was around the same, we were going to do the t-shirts, and we'd started production on them, and then that thing happened, and I was just like, I don't want to be promoting stuff at the moment, because it's just not right. I wouldn't feel right about it. And so we had all these t-shirts, and we were like, what should we do? Should we do like 50% to charity? Like, should we like just sell 50 of them? Like, what should we do? And I was just like, no, fuck it, man. Just sell them. Give all the money to charity, and like, you know, just do it. Yeah. And like initially we got 50 made, and then we sold like 250, and it was like, damn, this is sick.
Yeah.
And you know, I'm proud that it happened. I'm glad that it happened. And you know, it kind of made me think about things that I want to do in the future to like beneficial causes and stuff that.
From a personal sort of selfish standpoint, it was really nice to see.
Yeah.
So I think you did that. Alex did something.
Yeah.
Obviously, us and Dex did something as well.
Yeah.
It was just really nice because a lot of drum and bass exists on Facebook,
Yeah.
which is a very dangerous place for it to live. And a lot of opinions and things that, especially with Brexit and, all of the things we've touched on previously, it can feel quite toxic. So it was quite nice that like really prominent people in our scene were like, actually, this is how I feel about this thing. I'm going to talk about it. I've got a platform. I'm going to use it. No, just big thumbs up, really. It was lovely. It was lovely to see. Yeah, it was good.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad we did it.
What was your first rave that you remember? Like, what was the pivotal moment?
Fabric. I think Fabric was the first rave I ever went to. I went to college. I was a naughty kid. I got expelled from secondary school, and then I had to go halfway through my GCSE. So I had to go to this college where they did like a 1-year GCSE.
Nice.
And it was like this kind of like, it was college in Westminster, and it was full of dropouts. And all we did was smoke weed. And it was sick. But I went to college. I went to college with someone whose sister was going out with one of the guys from the Scratch Perverts.
Nice.
And so we kind of got, and they were at Fabric all the time. And so we kind of got unrestricted access to Fabric basically when we were like 16 years old, which was just like incredible.
That's a flex, man. Yeah. That is such a flex.
And so I went to Fabric and saw Scratch Perverts and, did what 16-year-olds do when they first go to raves at Fabric.
Yeah.
They had their own room more often than not in it.
They had a residency
in that kind of era, if I
years.
remember correctly. Like sometimes
I think it was.
Players would be in like 1, they'd be in room 2, and someone be in room 3. Oh yeah, I'm about.
So that was
era.
my first rave experience. The first drum and bass rave experience was when I went to Herbal a week later,
Sick.
and I didn't know what it was. A friend of mine was just like, let's go to Herbal.
Sunday night?
It's
Grace. Sunday night.
It was Grace, yeah. And I remember walking in there. I was 16. I didn't know where I was, what was going on. It was just all just new to me. And I so vividly remember standing in front of the decks, watching Groove Rider enter the club in this like floor length fur coat. And he got behind the decks and I was just like, who the fuck is this?
Sounds like a Dave Chappelle skit.
And the first thing he did, even before he took off his coat, is he rolled a huge spliff and just smoked the whole thing, folded up his coat, put it on decks, and then started DJing. And I was just like, I fucking love this guy. I love this. I want to live here forever. And I went back like religiously every week, every 2 weeks.
Did you know when he walked in the fur coat that he was the guy that had mixed the CD that you'd listened to 4 tracks of?
No.
That must have been a moment when you clocked that, like, fuck.
Yeah, I'd go to Metalheads there. I think I went to a therapy session once there. The first proper club show I ever played was at Herbal.
Sick.
And it wasn't a proper club show. It was like a friend of a friend. It was actually a friend of Bertie's, the guy who did the artwork. She booked her 18th birthday party to be at Herbal. And so I remember she put out something, it was on MySpace or something, and she was like, I'm looking for DJs to play at my birthday party. And my Bertie was like, yo, you should tell her you're a DJ. And so I recorded a mix and I sent it to her, and she was like, yeah, cool, you can play room 1 at midnight. And I was like,
headline slot, come on.
Yes. Oh my days, this is so sick. And I started practicing, I had all my records. And then the day of the party, she hit me up and she was like, yeah, there's been a bit of a mix-up. The club has double booked us. And so we're now going to have to share the club with another promoter. And so they've basically given us room 3. I don't know if you remember room 3 Herbal, all the way at the top.
Yeah.
And room 2. They gave us room 2 they gave her room 2 for the first half of the night, and then room 3 for the whole night. And they gave the other promoter room 1 for the whole night and room 2 for the second half of the night. So she got the bum end of the deal. But so from playing in room 1 at midnight, I went to playing in room 2 at 8 p.m. And so I turned up with all my records, and there was nobody there apart from the barmaid. And I remember very, very vividly saying to her, do you like drum and bass? And she was like, not really.
Mate, you tweeted about. I remember I put out a tweet about this. I was like, I can't remember what the contest was. I was like, what's your worst or the days with Club
I remember
MC Club. Yeah, I remember you tweeted about
people.
this. Yeah.
And she was like, not really.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. And I played Come and Get It by Break.
Nice.
But if segue that into worst show ever, was a show I did. I'm not going to tell you where it is because whoever put on the show might hear. I played a show that I turned up to, and there was like 2 people in the club, and I was playing, and then those 2 people left. And at one point, the person behind the bar went out for a cigarette, and I was the only person in the room.
MC Club.
And this was about 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago.
You know what's weird actually as well? I had a similar experience in a country that's pretty big for drum and bass with another artist that's pretty big. Again, I'm not going to give specifics in case everyone figures it out, but it was me and this other artist who's big, and genuinely about 5 people there.
Sometimes it happens, man.
It is weird.
I'm an MC. It always happens. Just have to pick up the mic. Gone.
I remember that Alex might kill me for saying this. I remember the first 1985 show we did in Cardiff, and there was nobody there. I think there was a fire. A fire had happened in Cardiff, but it was like, that stuff happens. It doesn't matter who you are. That stuff happens, man.
You can't predict that stuff, man.
People go, oh, nobody likes me or whatever. It's like, no, man. Sometimes you just can't control that stuff.
It's character building though, isn't it?
Yeah, totally.
And also you can then literally play whatever you want. There's no, you can just do what you want.
I ended up
turning around to the promoter and being like, do you want to go back to back? And he was like, yes. I was like, result.
Yeah.
That's a nice touch though, man. Yeah, may as well turn it into something different.
Number 1 festival, please don't say Outlook, because everyone says Outlook and the same conversation happens every time. What's your favourite festival?
To play at or to go to?
We'll
do both. We'll do both.
Sonar.
Okay.
Sick. That's in Barcelona. Barcelona, yeah. I went for work once. Sick festival.
I mean, Glastonbury, obviously. Glastonbury was sick to play at just because it's Glastonbury.
Yeah.
But Sonar was like, played there in the Ivy Lab days, and it was ridiculous. It was like beautiful sunshine at the start of our set. Then about 20 minutes in, there was like a torrential downpour, and we had to move from this little booth to the main stage where Bad Bad Not Good were just about to play.
Cash, come
Amazing.
on.
And like the rain was like sideways going through this little opening in this weird booth they'd built. It was coming onto the decks, and then you had these technician guys like trying to cover the decks with this plastic sheeting. And they were like, you need to move to the main stage. And you could kind of walk there from where we were. Like literally, like it was like 5 meters away. And I had my USB in my pocket because we were using someone else's, and I ran onto the main stage, and they had decks set up, and I put it in, and I loaded up the Die and Dismantle Tune sex thing, and press play, and I shit you not, it was like something out of a fucking movie. The rain stopped, the clouds came out, and the drop happened, and from we were in this kind of courtyard bit, and there were these 2 kind of massive canopy things where everybody had taken shelter to get away from the rain. And we moved onto the main stage. Sun came out, played Sex Thing. Everybody ran out into the main stage when it dropped, and it was unreal. I think there's a like, YouTube video of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, Sonar was, and then just Sonar in general was just an amazing. Barcelona's an incredible city.
Yeah, it's a cool festival as well because they kind of marry the tech side of it with it's a bit like South by Southwest vibes in terms of like they've got we've been there a couple of times for work, and it's like the tech side of it. Plus the music is wicked, man.
Yeah,
it's wicked.
I saw Kay Trinada there.
Sick.
And he was incredible.
Did he have the same backup crew from the Montreal Boiler Room set? Because that's the best video of all time on YouTube.
I'm not sure. I don't think I've seen that video.
You've not seen?
No.
Oh. Okay, it's the best video on YouTube. Basically, his Boiler Room set. I think it's 2017. It's the Montreal. Just watch it, man. Like there are so many subplots happening in the crowd. I've never seen any. I've never seen. I need to watch this now. Honestly, it's like legendary status inside the Boiler Room sets. Yeah. Just watch that. It's incredible. But yeah, amazing producer though, man. Amazing
ridiculous.
Producer. Yeah,
ridiculous.
Yeah, funky.
Yeah,
super funky. What's your take on the Folkhorn movement? I made it sound like a political thing, didn't I? The movement, the coalition of Foghorn.
I really like it. You know, I think that it's just become kind of commonplace now, and it's just like it's a thing. You know, I mean, it's just kind of made its way into the same. You know, you have it's just a subgenre now, I guess. It's just a style. Do I like every tune? No. Do I like every Liquid tune? No. Do I like every, you know, Calibre tune? Yeah, okay, that's a bad example. But, you know, it's the great, I think it's pervasive in that it's like, it's kind of relentless.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, it's kind of caught on, and kids are making it, and it's, you know, it's fun, and it's like a viral thing, whatever. But, you know, it's, for me, it kind of symbolizes what's really good about drum and bass, in that it's like forever. New things are always coming out. You know, 5 years ago when like Neuro was the big thing, I mean, Jump Up has always been huge.
Yeah.
It went to Belgium for a bit, and it's kind of stayed there for a couple of years. And it kind of now has gone full circle, but it's become quite cool. You know, Jump Up 5 years ago was like really badly produced, like Original Sin Taxman ripoffs, you know, and then Hazard was flying the flag for days, for years, and then people finally started to realize that it was something that they wanted to be involved in, and now it's kind of become commonplace. I think it's cool. It's gonna, the hype and the popularity might die down a bit as something else becomes in vogue, but you know, it's created a lot of very cool moments in the scene, and I think that's really cool, as to contribute to the scene like that, for a scene that's as old as it is to still be innovating like it is a good sign, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
I like that take.
Great answer. So
I like that take. Yeah. I've had this conversation with many artists, and actually, it's been quite nice to see so many of the more senior members of the scene, I guess we'll say. Senior in terms of stature, not in terms of age. Even like Lensman, for example, we've had this conversation many times, and he sends me Foghorn tunes. Have you heard this? Like, as an example of like somebody you might not necessarily think would be like, yeah, this is good, but actually they're backing it, which I think is quite cool, actually. So.
But like I was saying, like, you know, there are a million Calibre ripoffs.
Yeah.
There are a million really boring generic Liquid tunes out there.
Oh yeah, there's loads.
You know, and so I'm looking at you, mate.
What? Yeah, I saw that.
I literally almost came in with my standard cuss John. I was like, you know what? I'm going to let this one slide. So with a few of them today.
Lawrence said not let it slide. My head was hot there, bro. I was like, oh, he's looking at me. Shit.
Bars.
I was looking at Jack though. I was like, come on, look at Jack.
I'm not looking back at you, bro. I was looking at the floor. I wasn't making eye contact with none of you.
I can't look at Jack anymore because he gets really defensive, because he's all of a sudden like, why the fuck are you looking at me?
But like, do you remember when like Mephius was like the fucking king of the day?
Yeah.
And he, like,
from that Sunday Crunk remix onwards, man.
Everyone was trying to make Mephius tunes, and it was like, yeah, cool. There's going to be a couple that kind of shine through as really cool, but no one's ever really going to touch him.
I guess he set this bar, didn't he? That was like technically so high. Though.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, like with Liquid, you can do a rip-off of Liquid tune quite easily.
Yeah.
There's not, the technical barrier is quite low.
No, nice little road sample. Think break.
Wow. Little sampled vocal, you're good to go. Yeah.
YouTube, acapella, cover, chorus, reverb. Done.
That's it. By the way, what you've just done there is ruining a lot of careers, because that is genuinely the recipe to a Liquid tune, and then unfortunately people are going to get it now. So there you go. The veil's been pulled down.
Yeah, but are they ever going to
back into
us?
production?
Yeah, I was going to say.
Come out of retirement.
Mate,
I know what I need to do now.
It's
Jump on the liquid.
It's a new subgenre.
I don't even know what I'm trying to say at this point. My mouth's not working.
You haven't got wine as an excuse.
No, I don't. No, I've got tired.
But no, in answer to your question, I like some of it, and it's just another moment in a very, you know,
evolving scene.
Yeah. I'm kind of curious as to what's going to come next.
Well, this is the thing, because of lockdown, and I'm sorry I've said the word again, but like, because of that a lot of drum and bass thrives because of clubs, right? And it's quite, I'm sure there are a contingent of artists that have suddenly got a new thing that they've not unveiled yet, because wait for the clubs to come back. And we're going to see on Instagram just this new, pretty a few different styles or just new ideas that kind of to explode. I'm actually really excited for that because, yeah, I'm sure that there's going to be like, let's say 2022 or whenever the clubs come back. I'm ready for the heat, basically. I'm ready to hear what people have been cooking up.
There's got to be people sitting on like some absolute bangers.
Yeah, that aren't things we've had before.
Yeah.
Which I'm really excited about. For sure.
I wish I was.
Hopefully.
You are, mate. You are.
40 tunes, but yeah.
They're all crying though, so
Yeah, Cry Wank roller
is,
number one.
Yeah.
Cry Wank roller number two.
Yeah. It's funny that actually.
I need to start naming them, don't I?
I feel like we could do this for another 2-3 hours, to be honest.
Yeah.
I feel like there's probably a part 2.
We definitely could.
There's definitely a part 2 at some point in the future.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, for sure, man.
This has been a vibe, absolutely. Did you want to push anything, shout anything out? Shout out your wife already.
Shout out my wife.
Shout out your wife.
I mean, I guess at the point in which this comes out, my Sheller remix might be out. Maybe. I don't know.
Out already?
Out. I don't know. Go check that out. Not really.
Fair.
Shout out myself. Shout out you guys.
Big up. Thanks for coming on, man.
Episode 5.
Episode 5.
Who's in for episode 6?
I ain't got that far ahead yet.
Yeah, no, we've got a few options, man. It's very what's the word?
We've had a
dynamic.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dynamic.
The situation's very dynamic.
Loose, lazy.
That was a Boris spot, wasn't it? Like how he described lockdowns. It's a very dynamic situation right now.
But then it's undynamic at the same time.
Yeah. So we're
doing everything you can to keep the schedule open.
Anyway, we sidetracked massively there from the club. We just do it at every point in the podcast. Thank you so much for coming on, Lawrence. You've been great guest.
Thank you for having me.
Big up,
Great
man.
guest. And
Really
I'm
enjoyed that.
sure we'll get you back on at some point because there's definitely more to talk about. But yeah, that's been
If we do it again, can the other guy be here?
the other guy,
The other Galaxy guy.
Tom.
Yeah.
He can be. Yeah.
That's my only request.
You mean
Instead of John.
Instead of me.
I'm backing
okay.
this.
You want to replace Harry?
Yeah, so
Replace Jack with Harry.
No, I mean, yeah, you want to
Yeah.
replace Jack with Harry?
No, yeah. I'm sure you and Tom could have some great conversations, I'm sure.
I'll get Raygun to step in for me. And
Basically, it'll just be a different 3 people.
Well, just to be honest, as long as you're not here, then
Yeah, okay, all right, okay. I see what's happened here. No, that's fine. Honestly, Tom will hear this. He'll be gassed about that, so that's
fuck
fine.
Tom, he's a piss.
Yeah, fuck Tom, he's a prick. Yeah.
Concur.
Wicked. That's been episode 5. We'll catch you soon.
Bye.
Soon.
Safe.
Bye.